Shout out to 801_XRP. I do retweet some of his particular tweets and so on. States, XRP fam, the BIS at Hunsong Shin was asked of a cross-border multi-CBDC platform. Now, if you're wondering who this person is, he's an economic advisor and head of research for the Bank of International Settlements. Ooh. Now, Crypto Lulu references this guy quite often. Verson Alarja, he of Black Swan Capitalist, references him. Coach JV references him. So the key thing is what you're going to see in this particular clip. Quote, there's a DLT that proves the token you're transferring is genuine. You actually have the funds by zero knowledge proof. With this system, you can convert deposits into tokens, say London. He specifically mentions this. So we already add up the whole thing of this, all right? This is why I put so much focus on the likes of Quant, XRP, and XLM. They are consistently in my top 3. And for all the people who want to say, well, Max, Quant's not part of that. Malarkey. Bull. We already drew that connection and what they have done with CBDCs. Now you have, for instance, this particular connection with Ripple's XRP. And, you know, for all those people who are stating that, well, we haven't had anybody specifically mention specific cities or specific partnerships or, oh, this whole thing with Swift. Swift is not necessarily, you know, they're talking to the likes of Ripple. They're talking to the likes of Quant, but they haven't done the deal. Okay, hear me out. But if you have this guy, Hyun Sung Shin, who is literally, and I'll show it again, he is the economic advisor and head of research for the Bank of International Settlements. This is brought up so much, it's ridiculous. And you have him stating that you convert deposits into tokens, say, for example, in London, and you tie that to, for instance, the whole thing of the digital pound, again, the Quant connection. Now you have the XRP connection. Here we go.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. It's just a few taps. You can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
For other central banks that are, you know, forming these common platforms, and the way that these platforms work is to use distributed ledger technology, but using real names. So what we do is, you know, clearly, if you don't have, you know, as in crypto, this device of hiding behind the private key, you have to use real names. And if you use real names, you know, you cannot simply post all the transactions for everyone to see, because, you know, that would violate privacy.
It's going to violate privacy, but also we know what, guys? We know that a lot of these guys sign NDAs, right? So that makes sense as well.
Work is that there is a distributed ledger technology where you can prove that the token you're transferring is genuine, that you actually have the funds. And you can do it by proving the provenance, if you like, the origin of your token by using, you know, cryptographic techniques like zero knowledge proofs to show that it actually derives from a valid history of past transactions without revealing what exactly the transactions are. So, you know, it's a very constructive use of cryptography. And using that, what you can do is you can just, you know, you can form smart contracts, you can transfer, you can bundle them so that you have, you know, atomic settlement where the house is transferred if and only if the money is transferred. So you don't need an escrow account and so on.
Think about what you just said right there. You don't need an escrow account. Technically speaking, I mean, I know this is about XRP, but technically you could say XLM. You don't need an escrow account, right? Just think about that for a moment.
Enables you to do is to avoid the current practice, which is to say, you know, if I want to make a payment to a, you know, on behalf of my client, to a supplier on another continent, what you need to do is to hold a deposit in a bank in that jurisdiction, ideally, and then just call up the bank and say, look, debit my account and credit the account of the supplier. And if you don't have an account, you have to use a correspondent bank. And if you don't even have a correspondent bank with a deposit in that jurisdiction, you need to string along a whole host of different correspondent banks. Now, for that system to work, you need to hold balances at all of these different parts of the chain. And in a way, it's going back to the origins of supply chain financing, where the credit function and the payment function all are bundled together. And so it's incredibly intensive in terms of liquidity, and there are the operational challenges all along the chain. What this kind of platform can do is to just short circuit all of that. And of course, what you would need to do is, of course,
I gotta pause it there. Bundle it all together, short circuit it all. What do you know so far that is accomplishing this as we speak? Already what stands out for me is, for instance, Ripple's XRP, especially with Ripple's on-demand liquidity, for the reason of taking out what? Nostro Vostro out of the equation. He's not quite stating it. He's kind of like dancing around the whole topic of not specifically mentioning the likes of Ripple, right? Maybe because of NDA. But again, if you look at some of the key definitions of what they're doing, right, with ODL and so on, and you see what he's mentioning, again, it's kind of like if you've done your own research, you've already made that particular connection. We'll play a little bit more in regards to this. It's almost over. But it is really, really something to see him mention specific terms about distributed ledger technology, how this is all bundled together, and how you need to take out something that's existed with the likes of traditional finance for decades with Nostro Vostro. Let's listen a little bit more. I think it's really interesting. Let me know what you think. We're going to play a little bit more.
Convert some of your deposits into tokens. Yeah. So you cannot avoid tying up some of your deposits somewhere, but you can just do it once. And let's say just hold it in London. And then the tokens.
Oh my God. Everywhere. Like I said, he mentioned specifically London. I mean, come on, guys. He did specifically mention the likes of London. So right there, we understand that this whole thing of people stating that this is all BS, nothing's going to happen to the likes of a digital pound. How could you not be that much more bullish on the likes of a video like this? This is why I want to share it. There's a little bit more. I know I'm pausing it, but I got to pause it in key areas. I got to. All right. All right, here we go. A little bit more.
Without having to, lock up liquidity at different points, around the world, together with all the other problems that go along with that. Now, how far are we from seeing these things in action? Well, we've done experiments and they work. What we need to do is to make sure that we can actually build this to scale and
build this to scale.
Have the resilience.
Build this to scale. All right, testnet is done. You've done it. Obviously, you're in the mainnet. Build this to scale. Who consistently says building things to scale? Gilbert Verdian, right? Yeah, Quant. There is so much connection here. Again, he literally hit 3 that I know of. So XLM, talking about taking the whole thing, the whole concept of escrow out of it, right? Boom, XLM. Maybe somebody else could draw other connections, and that's fine. I hope you do, because if anything, it could be valid. So anyway, yes, some of the verbiage, if you will, Gilbert Verdian, Quant, some of these other specific things, taking Nostro Vostro, he's not stating that, but let's face it, that's what it is, out of the equation. Ripple's XRP. We already established 3 main ones here without him, quote unquote, diminishing or fully exposing, the NDA, if you will, without coming out and just stating it, right? You're dancing around the subject, but if anything, those who have done the research already know what the heck he's talking about here. This is almost over. Let's get more into it. Under a minute. Here we go.
That will really, stand the test of, real world use. But the technology is pretty clear. And, this is not experimental technology. Public key cryptography is when you go onto your, web browser, it's, you can see when you're paying with your credit card that you have a secure connection. That's exactly the same type of, public key cryptography that we're using with these payments. On your second question, wholesale and retail, which will come first, I think what we're seeing is that they are moving together. There are some jurisdictions like China, which have already, they're already in trouble.
All right, so there's more to this interview. I wish I could have got a little bit more, like maybe another minute or two, because he specifically goes on about this whole thing with wholesale and retail. And of course, with this whole thing of, the introduction of wholesale CBDCs and so on. And then when he talks about the retail, it's just like, okay, a little bit more about what? XLM. So, I mean, to me personally, three things, again, stood out. Quant, XRP, XLM. And when you have the likes of this particular guy, I cannot pound it home enough. He is from where? The Bank of International Settlements. He's like one of the main guys. Mr. Hun Sung Shin, 27,000 followers, economic advisor and head of research of the Bank of International Settlements. Why would the guy who is from the Bank of International Settlements be mentioning basically the definition of what all three of these are solving at scale? Come on, Quant. These cross-border payments, especially on the bank-to-bank, XRP, XLM, taking escrow out of the picture. I mean, I don't need him to state it because I already know what I've researched. And I know you guys already know what you researched as well. I feel as though we are really running out of time. If you don't hold these particular ones, it's not financial advice. I can't tell you what I'm doing. But this, for me personally, if I didn't hold these, I'd be really worried because I'd be like, you know what? There might be other opportunities in crypto in the future. And let's face it, there's going to be. I don't feel as though that they'll ever be quite like this. So let's face it, when Bitcoin originally came out, it was big because it came out during a time of what? The Great Recession, right? You had that beautifully written Satoshi white paper and so on, right? And that was huge for anybody who got into it at that time. Guess what? This moment in history that we're in right now, this is our moment.
So I thought I'd go a little bit more deeper with the findings. And I want to give a shout out, of course, to Versan Alarja of Black Swan Capitalists with this particular clipping. He states, Bank for International Settlements General Manager Agustín Carstens explains a tokenized future for money with a two-tier framework. He also goes on to mention that XRP as central bank money optimized for global transfers, liquidity, and settlements, and of course XLM as retail money designed for everyday transactions and peer-to-peer payments. Now you won't hear Agustín Carstens specifically mention those two, but again, draw your own conclusion into what he is referencing here, and I couldn't agree more with the tags that Versan posted. So we're going to play this slightly under 3 minutes, and then we'll come right back here shortly.
Tokenization would open up the scope for huge amounts of innovation, because in the tokens you can put how can they be used, how can they be traded. You can build into there the regulation. So a lot of the burdens you have today in handling regulation could be simplified dramatically. Mm-hmm. You could also build in cybersecurity or even AML CFT considerations, which is another aspect that generates huge costs to you.
It's a huge problem.
And so you can have a tokenized world where basically through unified ledgers and interconnectedness, you can put this financial system in place. The other advantage of having a tokenized-based world is that you can have atomic settlement, which means that you can do the settlement immediately, and therefore you could also save huge amounts in the management of collateral. We have already started a few projects in this direction. I think what we need to start with is to have a solid platform. What is a solid platform for a financial system? Is to have what we call a two-tier banking system. I mean, in every financial transactions, you always have a payment side. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure that that payment side is in place. What are the keys for the payment side in every financial transaction? It's basically commercial bank money, and at the end of the day, central bank money, because any commercial bank money transaction settles in the central bank. So to do this, you need tokenized commercial bank money and tokenized central bank money, not necessarily at the retail level, but at the wholesale level. With that, you can assure that you will have what is called the singleness of money, which means that when you have commercial bank money, a payment originated in Santander will trade exactly one-to-one for a payment originated by BBI. A dollar in BBI or a euro in BBI is exactly the same as a dollar in Santander. That is a singularity of money, and we need to preserve that. So for that, we need to build a very solid pillar, digitalized pillar, focused on tokenized central bank money and tokenized commercial bank money.
So try to remember what he points out here, as in Agustín Carstens. Commercial bank money, central bank money. This person, who is Car307 on Medium about 2 days ago, did an excellent job with his write-up here. I'll give you the key highlights. Because at the end of the day, how does Quant fit into all this? Well, Gilbert Verdian envisions Quant providing the essential underlying infrastructure for this entire transition to, quote, digital finance. Their role is to enable the seamless interoperability, or interoperable flow, I should say, of these new norms of assets and money, integrating traditional institutions with the emerging digital marketplace. I mean, recently we saw a new product from Quant Network, separate from the Overledger, literally referenced as Quant Flow. And what does that state if you go over to Quant Network? It states for commercial bank money and also central bank money. Interesting when we get into all that, right? I should say, and more importantly, for banks and then also commercial bank money. So if you want to see that for yourself, Quant Flow is right here. And I pointed this out in the previous outline. Programmable money for smarter financial systems. And like you also see right here, corporates, banks, capital markets, and treasury management. So interesting to see the terminology. And again, back to this, you might use Quant's tech without even knowing it. I mean, I think these statements are, it says something, to say the least. I think it speaks volumes. And again, this final thought. Verdian closed with a provocative prediction about stablecoins. As regulated bank-issued digital currencies gain traction, he anticipates a flight to safety where users prefer the security and backing of commercial bank money. He humorously suggested putting current stablecoins in solitary confinement, signaling a clear market shift towards differentiating between regulated and unregulated digital assets. The message from Verdian is powerful. The digital transformation of finance is well underway, driven by the foundational capabilities of blockchain and the innovative potential to tokenization and, of course, programmable money. Here's the source. I'm going to take you to that. I'm just going to play the highlights of this. You're more than welcome to watch the whole deep dive version if you choose to do so. After that, we'll jump into what Denelle Dixon has to share in regard to Stellar, XLM, and even USDC. And then after that, we'll close things out. Here we go.
If you had to put a number on it, how long would you say it might be before these projects see full launches? And is it just a matter of time until all countries have their own CBDCs?
I think it's been a wait and see assessment, but I think since last year, there's been a catalyst to take the next step because they're seeing the benefits to CBDCs, how it takes friction out of the system. It creates huge opportunity from a GDP growth perspective. It improves competition between providers where consumers and businesses can have better products and better innovation. So I think the benefits and the business cases now add up, whereas previously they were trying to work out what's the economic impact, what's the benefit. It was very theoretical. So a lot of central banks have been experimenting in public, in collaboration, or themselves. So we've seen a lot of that. But what we're seeing now is the next step. What does a central bank digital currency look like in the financial system? Project Rosalind was a really good example of that. It was a very private-public approach where it tested what it means in the real world with banks using a real Bank of England issued CBDC, which was in the real world setting. And what did that mean to consumers and what would that mean to businesses? So they're looking at the design. How do you implement this new infrastructure? How do banks use this new infrastructure? And so they're looking at the journey of going into production, which most of them are aiming by the end of the decade. So creating a whole new payment system is quite complicated and takes many years, but they've already started that journey. So what we're seeing is CBDCs will happen by most jurisdictions that have identified the benefits. But what we're also seeing is commercial banks do not want to wait for a CBDC until the end of the decade because they see the benefits of having programmability in commercial bank money. And so they're already underway in designing and going post-experiment. What does tokenized pounds and dollars and euros look like for them because the regulation is there? And what does programmable payments bring in terms of benefits and use cases to their bank and to their customers? So a lot of commercial banks are working together on this even today, and they would most likely have their own infrastructure up and running within the next 2 to 3 years, followed by CBDCs by the end of the decade, and they will all interoperate and be issued and accepted across all the different networks. So it's quite exciting because we're seeing that transformational change at a jurisdiction level of payments and programmable money. But then we're seeing that global view of that is once you do it, you can easily extend that out to other jurisdictions and interconnect them so you have global networks of commercial bank money flows.
So Denelle posted this over on LinkedIn a while back, and it's this quote that really holds weight. Quote, "Trust isn't a promise. It's actually our currency. Money moves differently now thanks to big players like Circle. Elizabeth Carpenter breaks down stablecoins, tech for good, and embracing the change." I want you guys to see this for yourself because, if anything, think about what is being mentioned here. Again, draw your own conclusion. Here we go.
Trust isn't a promise. It's actually our currency. The digital dollar that we issue, USDC, preserves liquidity and reliability that we all know and love about the US dollar and gives it the superpowers of the internet. But to do that, we've really had to set extraordinary standards of transparency and regulation. And you can see, for example, on our website, circle.com, we publish a daily dashboard of our reserves so that everyone can see why USDC is always redeemable and only redeemable 1-for-1 for US dollars. And so again, when we're talking about boring, a dollar is only ever worth $1, period.
So again, all this matches up to me. It absolutely matches up, to say the least. And you know how they just mentioned USDC? Well, here's the icing on the cake. Take a look into this and again, draw your own conclusion. First one, announcing USDC smart contract for BlackRock's BIDL. Announced April 11, 2024. If you remember at the beginning of the outline, we talked about smart contracts, especially with Stellar. Well, this provides BIDL investors with a near instant 24/7 BIDL off-ramp that brings to bear the core benefits of tokenized assets. This next one, November 4th, 2022, BlackRock managing funds for Circle's USDC stablecoin. BlackRock managing a money market fund that will look after the reserves of the USDC stablecoin from issuer Circle. This one,
BlackRock tokenized BUIDL fund now convertible to USDC. Leverages 100 million in USDC. How about this? Back in March 25th, 2024, BlackRock files for a tokenized asset fund with the SEC in collaboration with Securitize, seeding 100 million in USDC. And last but not least, Securitize integrates with Zero Hash to enable purchase of what you see here, USDC. Again, integration with Zero Hash. That was back in October. So, in my opinion, it's more than there. And if anything, this last part gets honorable mention. Circle Mint deepening their partnership with BlackRock. And it says through their partnership with BlackRock, they've begun investing in Circle Reserve Fund to manage a portion of the USDC reserves. Now, you got to remember, when it comes to Circle, what were they formerly known as? Stellar USDC. Simply do me a favor if you listen to this entire outline and type in this key term into the comments, and that is programmable money. And I'll know that you listened to the entire outline. As the saying goes, know what you have, know what you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. We will see you on the next one.
Load up on guns, bring your friends. It's fun to lose and to pretend. She's all